Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Hi everyone, I'm Brittany. Welcome to Randomness, where we talk about a little bit of everything, the deep, the weird, and the real. So take a breath, open your mind, and let's get into it. Hi guys, today I want to talk about something that I feel like doesn't get nearly enough attention in the self-improvement and spirituality space. And that's the idea of sacred spaces. And when I say sacred spaces, I don't just mean like an altar with crystals and candles, although that absolutely counts. I mean any space, physical or emotional, that feels intentional, nurturing, and safe. Like a space that supports who you are becoming and how you want to feel. Because I think a lot of us we really underestimate how much our environment affects us. The spaces we inhabit have a huge influence on our mood, our energy, our mental health, our relationships. And a lot of us have never really thought about what kind of spaces we are creating for ourselves. So first, let's talk about physical spaces, because this is the most tangible and probably the easiest place to start. Think about how you feel when you walk into a cluttered, chaotic space versus a calm, organized, intentional one. Your body responds differently. In a chaotic space, you might feel anxious, overwhelmed, distracted. In a calm space, you feel more settled, more focused, more at ease. That's not just in your head. Research actually shows that our physical environments have a direct impact on our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone. So cluttered and disorganization increase cortisol. Clean, organized, aesthetically pleasing spaces reduce it. And from a spiritual perspective, your environment is a direct reflection of your inner state. So if your space is chaotic and cluttered, it often mirrors internal chaos. And cleaning and organizing your space isn't just about tidiness. It's about creating room for new energy to flow in. Maybe you've heard the saying, as within, so without. Like your outer world tends to reflect your inner world. And the reverse is also true. When you intentionally create an environment that feels good, it actually starts to shift how you feel on the inside. So how do you create a sacred physical space? It all starts with intention. What do you want this space to feel like? What energy do you want it to hold? Is it a space for peace and relaxation, for creativity, spiritual practice, for deep conversations and connection? And once you know the intention, you can start curating the space to support that. And this might mean decluttering first, getting rid of things that don't belong, that carry heavy energy, that remind you of things or people that don't serve you anymore. Because our possessions carry energy, and sometimes holding on to certain things is holding us back without even realizing it. Then think about the sensory elements, what you see, smell, what you hear. This is where things like candles, crystals, plants, soft lighting, meaningful artwork, and just calming scents come in. These aren't just aesthetic choices. They are tools for setting the energy of a space. And scent is especially powerful because it is directly linked to the limbic system in your brain, which is responsible for emotion and memory. So lighting a specific candle or burning a particular incense every time you meditate or journal, it trains your brain to associate that scent with calm and focus. And over time, just smelling it triggers that state in you. Plants are another great addition to any sacred space. They bring life and oxygen and natural energy into a room. And caring for them can itself be a meditative grounding practice. And then there's the idea of an altar or a dedicated spiritual corner. And this doesn't have to be elaborate or religious in any traditional sense. It's just like a small space that you designate as sacred. Maybe a shelf or a corner of a table where you keep meaningful things. A candle, a crystal, a photo of someone that you love, something from nature, an affirmation card, things that remind you of what matters, that help you feel connected to something greater. And having a physical anchor like this is really powerful for spiritual practice because it gives you a place to go when you sit down at your altar or in your designated meditation spot. Your body and mind start to shift into that sacred headspace because you've trained them to associate that space with energy. Now, let's talk about emotional sacred spaces because I think this is just as important as the physical stuff, if not more so. So, an emotional sacred space is the internal and relational environment that you cultivate. It's about creating safety within yourself and in your relationships for authenticity, vulnerability, and growth. Think about the people you feel most like yourself around, the ones where you can say anything without judgment, where you feel completely seen and accepted, where you don't have to perform or manage how you come across. That's an emotional sacred space. And think about how rare and precious that is, because most of us spend so much time in environments that don't feel safe in that way, where we are managing impressions, holding back and not fully showing up. So creating emotional sacred spaces in your relationships means choosing people who hold space for your growth, who don't make you feel small or judged for being honest, who you can be messy and imperfect with. And it means being that kind of space for others too. And it also means creating boundaries because boundaries are how you protect the sanctity of your emotional spaces. When you allow toxic energy, drama, or negativity into your inner circle without boundaries, it contaminates the space, like leaving a window open in a room that you have carefully curated. Eventually, the outside chaos comes in. So protecting your emotional space is not selfish, it's necessary. You really do have to be intentional about who and what you allow into your inner world, okay? And then there is the internal emotional space, the relationship you have with yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the thoughts you allow to linger, and the standards you hold for yourself too. That's also a space that can be sacred or chaotic depending on how intentional you are with it. And creating a sacred internal space means things like regular journaling, meditation, self-reflection. It means noticing when your internal dialogue is harsh and choosing to redirect it. It means giving yourself permission to feel without judgment, treating yourself with the same care and respect you would give someone you love, because you are a space, you're a vessel, and what you allow in, how you tend to yourself, how you speak to yourself, all of that is creating either a sacred or a chaotic internal environment. And here's something that I love about the idea of sacred spaces. It's so personal. There's no one right way to create one. What feels sacred to one person might feel completely wrong to another. And that's the point. You're not following a template. You are listening to yourself. Maybe your sacred space is a corner of your bedroom with a journal and a candle. Maybe it's in your car where you sing and dance along to music and decompress after work. Maybe it's a spot in nature where you go to think. Or maybe it is a specific friendship where you always feel like yourself. Whatever it is, recognize it, protect it, and be intentional about creating more of it in your life. Because when you have spaces, physical and emotional, that feel safe and sacred, it changes things. You have somewhere to return to when life gets overwhelming. You have a foundation, a sanctuary. And in a world that is loud and chaotic and constantly demanding your attention, having a sanctuary isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. So I want to challenge you this week to think about one space in your life, physical or emotional, that you want to make more intentional. Maybe it's your bedroom, your morning routine, a friendship, your internal dialogue. Pick one thing and ask yourself, how can I make this feel more sacred? Because you deserve spaces that hold you, that restore you, that remind you of who you are and what matters. Right? Yes. But anyway, that's just what I've been thinking about, guys. And I hope this inspired you to look at your spaces a little differently, because the environment you create is the environment you live in. So make it one that supports the life you're building. But thanks for listening, guys. Until next time, protect your peace, curate your spaces, and remember, you deserve to feel at home in your own life. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow. And remember, keep your energy grounded, your mind open, and your curiosity alive.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.